Hey, if you are an ICF member, the following information might be relevant to you since ICF have new accreditation rules. The ICF now requires you to complete a quiz after watching a session recording so you can get CC units for it. After you fully watch this session recording, simply scroll down to the session resources and find a one-question quiz. Please complete it and you will ensure that you've received the CC units for this session. And if you already attended this session live, you've already been granted the CC units for it, and you don't need to complete this quiz. Also, here is a quick tutorial on how to get the most out of our new video player. Click on the CC button to turn on captions. Click on the search button, enter a specific keyword, and then click on the result. And you will be taken to the part of the video where your keyword is mentioned. Click here to download raw transcripts and head over here for the downloadable audio. That's it from me. Hope you enjoyed this session.
All right, folks, we're ready. We're just a minute or so from getting started, watching the Zoom open up the gates and let everybody in. Great. It's nice. Hello, Larry. Noticing a bunch of our regulars already logging in. Okay, y'all know the drill, and we're going to get started in just a moment. But before we do, for those who've already come in, let us know where you're coming in from, and then I'll share the question with you in just a moment. All right, so we've got 1 minute till the top of the hour. Go ahead and get yourselves settled so you're ready for what looks to be a very fun and informative session. So this should be great. Good. Hello, Ralph and Susan have come in. Teohan, Vicky's joining. For those of you old enough, this feels like Romper Room. Hello, David. Carol's come in. Alice, Allen, good. All right, so just a moment. I'm signing in. Ready, Ed from Memphis. We've got folks from Quebec, California, Switzerland. All right. A fabulously international group as the rest start to trickle. Rainy West Virginia. I'm so sorry. All right, just 30 seconds from starting. Yeah, all right. Hello, Len. Everybody's coming in and getting settled. All right, let's slide that away. And we're ready to start in just a sec. All right, so let's make it official. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the globe you're logging in from. Today's session is Be Your Own Ally, showing up for you first. And that's with Morag, Barrett, and Ruby Vesely, whom I'll introduce in just a moment. Let's get the conversation started now in the Q&A box with, what's one positive word to describe yourself? You'll enter that into the chat box, into the Q&A box, and also let me know where you're coming in from. All right, so Dr. Zena is in from Montreal, Quebec. Again, David from Switzerland, sunny Perth, West Australia, Philadelphia back on the US East Coast. California is representing all up and down the coast. I love it, Claudia, assertive. And Eileen's word is high energy. Susan is funny. And Tim from Sydney is loving. Good. Generous, go-getter, love, energetic. Well, that's perfect for the presentation we're going to have. And Janice, hello from my hometown, Atlanta. Great. Okay, so in order to get the most out of today's session, I recommend that you turn off all distractions, prepare to take notes, and allow yourself to be fully focused and engaged with our speakers today. My name is David Taylor Klaus, and I'll be your host today. We also have Lynn behind the screen handling all the questions and logistics in the background. Now, before we go any further, here's some quick membership news. Next Tuesday, February 27th at 11 a.m. East Coast US time, we've scheduled a welcome meeting. During this session, we'll go through the platform features in detail and provide a walkthrough of the software and the marketplace. The welcome meeting is not only for new members, but for anyone interested in learning how to get the most out of their membership. You can register for the welcome meeting inside of the Center for Excellence. We really hope to see you there. All right, let's roll back to the session. After this session ends, we invite you to join the Implementation Mastery sessions to expand on the learning from this session. There, you'll meet with like-minded coaches in small facilitator-led groups and share your key takeaways, hear those of others, and collaborate together on how you can apply that learning with your clients in your practice and in your life. These will take place 30 minutes after this presentation ends, and again, this coming Tuesday, and they'll be offered in English. Lynn is going to drop a link into the chat box, and you can sign up for the sessions there or by visiting your membership area and going to the IM Sessions tab. All right, let's get to the introductions. Morag Barrett and Ruby Vesely. Morag is an executive coach and leadership expert, and she helps leaders achieve results through relationships. With SkyeTeam, she's developed over 10,000 leaders across 6 continents. She's an award-winning author of 3 books and a recognized HR thought leader. And the fun fact she's allowing me to share today is that she is a ballroom dancer with a closet full of sequins. So let me move over to Ruby. Ruby Vesely has shaped exceptional organizational culture and has built amazing teams over 20 plus years of leadership development experience. The author of You, Me, We, Ruby's a sought-after executive coach practicing deep presence to find new pathways to growth. And the fun fact about Ruby is she was a really good roller skater back in the 80s. All right, and with that, Morag and Ruby, I hand the floor over to you.
Thanks, David, and hi to everybody. Oh, Olivia from London in the UK. And for those of you now listening, you'll hear I've got a little bit of an accent. I grew up in and around Colchester and have now been living here in Colorado for the last 20 years. Time flies when you're having fun. But we're excited to be with you today. And as I thought about David's opening question, what would be my word? And I'm going to go with curious. What about you, Ruby? What would be your word?
I was going to go with loving, but then I'm like, I'm funny too. So I couldn't decide. There's 2.
Well, loving, you can hyphenate it. We'll hyphenate it and make loving and funny all one word. There you go.
Perfect.
So we're excited to spend the next 90 minutes with you talking about how you can show up to be your own ally and put yourself first. I know from my own life experience that it is very easy for me to deprioritize the self-care that I need. And I'll share some of those stories and real-world examples as our conversation unfolds. And as we do move through the program, please continue to converse with us via the Q&A. Ruby and I will be scanning it as we go, and we'll be answering your questions live, in addition to taking pause points throughout the 90 minutes so that we can reflect on the insights that you've taken to that point in the conversation. But Ruby, as we were planning for this webinar, what was it about this particular topic and the need for self-care that is so important and resonates for you?
I was thinking back, we had COVID hit just about 4 years ago. And this was this moment in time on this global stage where we all got out of pattern in every part of our lives, and especially in these self-care patterns that we had built over the years. And it was just interesting from my own experience, recognizing how that hit me and how that felt getting out of that pattern. And in all of my coaching engagements over the last several years, I feel like this has been a component of each of those coaching engagements in some way or another, this need for self-care and self-advocacy. Because I think when we're really taking care of ourselves, we can get into the flow of life and we become deeply present. I'm so glad that David used that word when he introduced me, that deep presence, because when we're deeply present, we can serve the world in a way that is so grounded and really aligned with our intention and kind of the legacy we want to leave in the world. But when we overdo it, we can't share our gifts in a way that in a way that's just fully resourced. So I love this topic. I think it's so important, and I'm good at it sometimes and I'm not good at it sometimes, especially as a coach. So I love that we're doing this today as a gift back in service of the coaches on this call.
And I think whilst the focus for the next 90 minutes is about and for us as individual coaches, I know that for the leaders that you and I are supporting, the themes that we're going to talk about, the tools that we're going to share, apply as equally to them as they do for us. For many of the leaders that I'm supporting, when we re-emerged from the pandemic, they got back onto the hamster wheel of corporate life or career life and entrepreneurial life, whichever facet it was, and really picked up running fast in the way they had done before. And this is an opportunity to reevaluate. Are you running in the right direction? Are you running in the right way? And are you running alone or are you running with others? So for the remainder of our time together, here's a little guide for where we're headed. We want to talk a little bit more about why this matters, the presence, the self-care, and how that benefits not just us, but the legacy we're creating in support and service of the leaders that we are supporting. We're going to share the 3 steps to becoming an ally and the 5 practices that from the research that Eric, Ruby, and I have done for You, Me, We demonstrate an ally mindset. You'll be able to then reflect on where you may need to pause and invest more time and care and attention for yourself, but also use it as a language and framework to help your own leaders that you are coaching to take a moment to evaluate how are they showing up, what energy are they bringing to the world and each conversation and each relationship. And where you see this little yellow flag, that is to indicate that here's a tool. Here's a tool that please take it, use it, adjust it, adapt it. And they vary in scope and complexity from the deceptively simple to a little bit more involved, but all with the intent of helping us to be our best, especially when circumstances might be causing us to be at our worst. So Ruby, what do you hope that those who have chosen to be with us today are going to take from this program?
I hope that you all walk away with one thing that's really important for you as you move forward in this kind of self-care frame. This is essentially today we're going to go through the coaching process, right? We're going to deepen your own awareness around how you're taking care of yourself right now. And hopefully you'll find some meaningful action moving forward, like one thing that you can take with you. And again, as Morag said, just some tools and resources to share with your clients, to talk about this idea of self-care. A lot of times we'll hear people talk about it as, go get a massage or go for a walk. What we're talking about today is a little bit deeper. It's the deeper work that we do with our clients and that we also need to be doing for ourselves.
Okay, well, on a side note, it looks like I have a cousin, a distant relative in Mary who's here. She's related to the Barretts. And Micah, if I'm saying your name right, as an independent business owner, Ruby and I feel your pain. That saying yes to anything and everything in the moment has been, and actually after 17 years of running SkyeTeam, continues to be a challenge for both of us. And the key here is understanding your heck yeses. And anything that isn't a heck yes, anything that doesn't excite you, whether it's the client, the project, the destination, then learning to say no or no in a smaller and different way is one of the ways that you can reduce that feeling of overcommitment. And we'll touch on this a little later on as we get to tactics. However, we're going to start with our first tool. And we've used this regularly to open meetings when we're facilitating a group event. We've used it one-on-one with our coaching clients. And you can see the question here on the screen. The question is as simple as, what's your number? So I'm asking you now, as you pause to think about what's your number, where 1 is you're running on empty, maybe like Micah, at the moment I'm feeling overcommitted, overwhelmed, over whatever it might be? Or are you a 10? You're a full tank. Let's do this. In fact, I could do a little bit more. Just put in the Q&A for us right now. What's your number? I'm going to pause here. So Ruby, what would your number be?
I was just thinking about that as you were asking the question. I'm probably a 5 or a 4 today. It's been a long week. I had a significant health event with one of my family members, and I traveled for work, and I was on an airplane this morning. I had to have a crown put in.
This afternoon?
Yes, maybe this afternoon.
Okay, well, thank you for being here as a 5 or a 6. And we can see in the chat here, we've got 7, we've got a 4 from Cheryl, Gary, a 7, a 10 from Sylvia. It is the full spectrum. And much like Ruby, I think if you'd asked me on January the 2nd, what was my number, it would have been a 3 or 4 as I looked at the 2 months of the year ahead of me and how many commitments I had signed up for and wondering whether I could make those. But right now, having been in the green room with David, I can tell you I'm a 11 and a half. I'm a little bit buzzy actually with excitement for this conversation. And here's the power of this exercise. It's not necessarily that you have to discuss what the number is and what the rationale is behind it. It is just putting a pause in the moment to think about, well, if I am a 3 or a 4, what can I do right now to turn that to a +1? How can I bring that energy up to a 5? What is needed in this next interaction, this next meeting that I'm having? I'll share another, well, actually, I'm going to save this example for when we get to courage and vulnerability. So ask me about the number example, Ruby, when we get to that later on. But it does remind me, if I flash back 2 years ago, this is my Hollywood reenactment of a real situation that I found myself in. But much like Ruby's week that she had this year, 2022 was the year that I was having. In that we were finishing the manuscript for You, Me, We. My focus was meant to be on bringing the book to life and birthing the book. In addition, I had a heavy client load and also had some family challenges that were just sucking the energy and taking the time and energy from me. And I remember vividly that I was sitting here at my desk and I hit the wall. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't talk straight. I just couldn't do. And so I went outside and I remember lying on my deck, looking at the Colorado sky, looking at the patterns in the clouds, and I could not move. It was overwhelming. And in that moment, I also remember feeling like I was a failure, that I should be able to toughen up and just walk it off and just nothing to see here and power on through. But the reality is we all have a limit, and the best self-care means that we don't get to the point that we're lying on the patio unable to move, but we've actually identified the warning signals and taken preemptive steps to refill our energy and to course correct before it becomes career or health limiting. Ruby, do you remember that year? Do you remember this moment?
Yeah, I do. And I could see it on your face when we were in Zoom calls. I could hear it in your voice and even in how you responded to emails, or like something was off and it felt different being with you. Not in a bad way, but I could tell that it was off for you.
And here's one of the first clues I would signal to all of you. And that is when somebody says, "Are you okay?" Don't just brush it off. Because even if you are okay, you're signaling a something that causes someone who obviously cares about you and your success to ask the question. So in that moment, take it as an opportunity to pause and reflect and say, well, what is it that might be causing me to be less than at my best? Or what is causing me to have my best not be seen by others? What I am grateful for from that 2022 experience is that Ruby was paying attention. She had been asking me if I was okay, and I was doing the British thing of a stiff upper lip and saying, no, I'm fine. But that day where I decamped to the patio, within minutes, I remember my phone was on my chest here and it started to buzz because Ruby had noticed that I'd gone on Slack from available to unavailable, and this was unusual. And she was literally calling me to check in and make sure I was okay. So when it comes to being a friend and having a friend at work, who's your Ruby? Who's paying attention to actually ask you and challenging you, are you okay? And who's your friend who's paying attention enough to give you a call in that moment of need so that you can plan your way forward? The key here is you're not alone. And I know when I was lying on the patio, when we're in the depths of feeling overwhelmed, it can be easy to imagine that it's just me, that I'm the one that's flawed, that I'm the one that needs to cope better, and the trash talk starts. But the research is clear it isn't. Ruby touched on the pandemic earlier. And certainly when we look at the research, whether it's from McKinsey or others, 75% of employees in a recent research survey said that this is the most stressful time of their lives. Think about that. 3/4 of the people around us are feeling stressed and overwhelmed. 44% of those then don't trust their co-workers. They're worrying, they're looking over their shoulder, they're worrying about the messages, they're reading the emails and reading between the lines. And as we know as human beings, in the absence of information, the stories that we tend to write are negative and personal. It therefore only fuels the stress, the worry, and anxiety. And most heartbreaking of all, 20% of the leaders who've completed our ally mindset profile, and indeed 20% of leaders responding to Gallup research, say that they have no friends at work, not even one person that they can turn to in a time of need. And as solopreneurs, as small business owners, as in-house coaches, who's your friend at work? Who do you turn to? And that isn't just outward. It comes back to the whole theme of this particular conversation, which is how do you show up as a friend for yourself? Ruby, what's top of mind for you as you reflect on the research that we've been reading and the studies that we've been studying?
It helps me remember that we're not alone and that we're all in this experience. And you talked about, we both have mentioned COVID, right? We got out of pattern. Now we're trying to get back into pattern. We're returning to this new normal. I'm going to put it in quotes because is it normal? What is normal?
Mm-hmm.
And we're different. So we had patterns before the pandemic. We all went through some sort of shift and move and change. And now we're interjecting ourselves back into old patterns that don't fit anymore, and different relationships. And it feels stressful, and we're trying to find our way. And I'm noticing this with a lot of people and with myself too. What are the new patterns? How am I going to take care of myself? What kind of connections and relationships am I leaning into in this new normal?
Yeah. And for those of you looking at this slide going, okay, well, those stats are great. I want to be one of the pink dudes or dudettes. I'm just going to point out here that my guess is that a lot of this research is actually under-reporting the levels of stress, anxiety, loneliness, and disconnection that's happening for all of us at this point in time or at any time. Because I don't know about you, but when I am stressed or anxious, the last thing I want to do is to fill in a questionnaire about being stressed or anxious. But the research also goes on to show that the solution to this, the way forward, is actually counter to what many of us do. And this quote from Sean Aker of The Happiness Advantage really nails it for us, that the people who survive stress the best are the ones who actually increase their social investments, which is the opposite of what most of us do. Most of us try to bottle it up. Most of us lean back. Most of us take a step back from being around others. Whereas, in fact, our research, and as this comment from Sean Acor shows, we should be doing the other, which is calling that friend, going out and meeting with our colleagues, scheduling opportunities to lean and accept help from others. And when we do that, what we do know is that within teams and within organizations, collaboration goes up. 20% increased collaboration within and across teams. We know that our life and job satisfaction goes up. And has already been commented on in the chat, it has a direct impact on our health. Heart attack, cholesterol, our fitness levels. When we're stressed and anxious, when we're disconnected, those tend to suffer. But when we are feeling supported, when we're feeling connected to others, then we are investing in our happiness, our satisfaction increases. And as a result, so does engagement with our work and engagement with our teams and colleagues. And that brings us to the Gallup research. And as you know, for many of you, Gallup have been researching this concept of engagement for decades. Ruby, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah. So as Morag said, many of you are probably aware of the Gallup, the Q12. One of the questions, I think it's Q10, is, do I have a best friend at work? And it's an interesting question that is thrown in with many other indicators for what it feels like at work. Are you engaged at work? And as we started thinking about this question, we thought it was a little passive. And rather than, do I have a best friend at work? Am I a best friend at work? How am I showing up for the people around me? What does it feel like in my presence? Do people know that I care about them? Am I making space for the people around me? And as we wrote our book, You, Me, We, you can see the title there, Why We All Need a Friend at Work and How to Show Up as One. It also became really clear for us that we have to show up as a best friend to others, but there's also this counterforce of showing up for ourselves, and that we have to do both. We can't be all out serving everyone else because we know that we get burned out. And we can't be all inward and only taking care of ourselves because we're not doing the work out in the world that we're longing to do. So it's really both of those things. What would you add, Morag?
So I think that's it. It's giving the space and grace to be human, to bring our human to work. And I know early in my career now is nearly 32 years old, I remember being told it's not personal, it's just business. Well, any business, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're part of a conglomerate, whether it's a few hundred people or a few thousand employees, it is all about the quality of the relationships that make the difference. Mm-hmm. And here's the challenge early in my career with that, it's not personal, it's business. The idea of being able to separate the work Morag from the home Morag was one of the myths that I know I bought into. I kept that professional lip, which meant I couldn't ask for help when I needed it. It meant I couldn't admit that I didn't know or I was feeling overwhelmed and accept help when it was offered. So often we are led to believe that work and home, if it even overlaps, should be kept as two separate things. But the reality is very different. It is more like this. We don't leave our emotions at the door. We can't leave the fact that family or friends have been calling us and are in a state of stress or having health issues. And we need to find a way and a language that makes it okay for us to show up as the whole person. whilst recognizing there are parts of me, Morag, the whole person, that you absolutely don't want to know about. And it isn't appropriate for me to share, at least not on our first date, on our first webinar. But I can share more than I have done historically in the earlier part of my career. And in doing so, it makes our relationship stronger and makes us better together. And this brings me to the final one of my bugbears, and it's that phrase work-life balance. I'll tell you now, there is no such thing. There is only life, of which work and home and social and you and everything, all the hats that we wear, need to be part of. And you get to choose which hat you're wearing today. You get to choose which percentage of time you want to invest in those different facets. And as you're working with the leaders, letting them recognize if you have one life, make it a life well lived. And in which case, what is that legacy? What do you want to be known for? And then where do you need to invest more? And where may you need to step back in order to give you that more well-rounded whole person experience? So we're going to pause here and ask you to reflect. Ruby, I know that this is something that you're passionate about. How do we position this?
Yeah, before we kind of dig into some additional tools around self-care and thinking about that in your own life, want you to connect to number one, a time. Think about a time when you weren't really showing up for yourself. Think about a time in your life when you weren't really showing up for yourself, and what was the impact? You don't have to share this with anyone, but sort of connect to the emotions and think about how that impacted your whole life. And on the flip side, think about a time when you were fully resourced. And when I use this word fully resourced, I'm talking about you're really paying attention to what's going on inside, and you're acting on it, and you're taking care of yourself, and you're like in the flow. So give some thought to each of those. And we would love to hear what was the impact for each of these for you. So let's start with the first question. Recall a time when you weren't really showing up for yourself. And in the Q&A, would love to just see a few of you make some comments around what was the impact for you when you weren't really showing up for yourself, and what did that look like?
Well, look at this. Michelle says burnout. I'm going to go with Ginwa. Pretty name. Burnout again. I think for me, as I think about a time when I wasn't really showing up for myself, not being honest with myself, it was inauthentic. And then I felt guilt about not being authentically me. And you get into this spiral and it takes you further down.
Yes.
And hopelessness at times. So Koo, feeling stressed and anxious. Oh, Tammy, look at that. Stress, burnout, and angry. Isn't that interesting? It's the intense emotions are starting to come to pay here. Not negative, I just want to be clear, because emotions are important here, but they are intense emotions. Ruby, what's standing out for you as you look at this list?
Yeah, there was one by Sylvia. I love that she used these words, that they use these words. I was tripping over myself. That really resonates for me in my own experience, where I get in my own way and I'm actually fighting life and I'm not in the flow. And I can't move in the way that I need to move. So thank you, Sylvia. What else?
Lost in the exhausting, messy. Oh, you've got small there. Yeah. Frustrated that I lost my groundedness. And here's the thing, we're all going to have off days. There is no such thing as perfection. And we just need to anticipate them. And if we can reduce the frequency of them, and if we can reduce the intensity of them, then everybody benefits. But whatever self-help book you do, whatever self-care techniques you choose to adopt, you are still going to have off days. and don't allow those to outweigh the shiny and beautiful days when you're firing on all cylinders. And it can be easy to lose sight of those when we are in the gray days of feeling overwhelmed, short-tempered, etc.
Yeah. I saw someone who asked for an example. They said, can you share an example of when you weren't really showing up for yourself? I'll sum up an experience that I had in 2021. So think about the timing of that, right? I'm out of pattern. I'm not really taking care of myself. I had some health issues flare up that lasted for 7 months, so more than half of 2021. And in the meantime, I was still working a lot, feeling burnt out. I remember looking back at my calendar for that year, and what was going on with me required I go to the doctor a couple times a week. And I would see a doctor's appointment, and there was just enough time scheduled so that I could get to my next meeting. And you can just see what I was doing to myself, knowing that I have amazing colleagues who will support me to do things differently, but I didn't ask for what I needed. And I just kept working. I kept leaning into the work and leaning away from self-care and leaning away from the people who could really support me. So that's an example. And I'll share the win at the end of that story later in our presentation. So thank you for asking that question.
Okay.
So let's go to the
Let's
flip
move.
side. Yep, jinx. Recall
Jinx.
a time when you were fully resourced. This is a time when you were taking care of yourself, using your voice. You really felt like you were moving in the flow of your life. So think back to that time. What was the impact for you in your whole life when you were really taking care of yourself, advocating for yourself? See,
I'm going to just add the word, energized, exhilarating comes to mind for me, because when you are on a roll, especially when you can share that success and that momentum with others, the flywheel just seems to get bigger and faster.
Yeah.
And that is what really energizes me, and why our tagline is better together. It truly is a team sport. Even if you're on your own, you're no longer on your own, because you've got Ruby and I. We're your friends at work, and we're rooting for you too. And when we can celebrate other people's successes, when we can champion our own, when we can even surprise ourselves of, wow, Morag, I got through those first 2 months of the year that I was stressing over, but take a moment to actually recognize it and acknowledge it and celebrate it, then that fuels the more positive spiral that helps maintain us in the direction that we want to go. What else are we seeing here?
Fun and energy. I felt strong. Yeah, alive with energy. Energy is like coming up so much.
Oh, look, this one, Ruby, resonates. I'm sure it resonates for you. Tammy Malloy, energized and yet also feeling a deep sense of calm confidence.
Yes. Yeah. When we spoke about this previously, I remember one of our participants using this metaphor of when they were in fully resourced, they felt like this tree, this like with really deep roots, grounded and so strong. And then they mentioned the leaves and growing up to the sky and expansive. So feeling both of those things at the same time. Love that, Tammy.
Like Michelle Broomfield here, felt released, like I was finally truly thriving. And isn't that what we're trying to help the leaders that we're coaching to do, which is to unlock the potential that they may or may not know that they have, to truly thrive and not just survive in whatever role that they are playing and you are supporting them in that moment. So in the remainder of our time together, we want to share with you the 3 steps to how do you tap into that? How do you help yourself to be fully resourced either through your own means, but also by tapping into your allies, your friends at work, whether they be colleagues at the same organization or just friends and professional colleagues that you know in the industry or in the world. And it is as simple as look up, show up, and step up. And these 3 steps have now found their way into our lexicon and into how I choose to show up at work. And it provides an opportunity for us to pause and reflect, to make an intentional choice about how we might show up, and then a choice around how we step up to reach that thriving environment that Michelle described, and how we can be in the flow as Mike has described in the Q&A here. So let's start with look up. And we've touched on this already in the session, in that look up is that moment to pause in our rush to get everything done, to fold the laundry, to cook the dinner, to get the handout made, to schedule the meeting, and oh, by the way, get to the doctors in between all of those. The 2 questions that we are regularly asking ourselves at SkyeTeam now is, how do others feel in my presence? Because even if I'm at a 10, if I'm running and frantic and thriving and energized, that has the risk of being overblown and exhausting both Eric and Ruby as I keep coming with more and more ideas. So I need to be thinking about the impact I'm having, not just for my colleagues, but also for the leaders that I'm having. So how do others feel in my presence? Am I building them up or am I draining them down? And then the kicker for today's conversation is, how do I feel in my own presence? And when I am sitting quietly on the sofa at the end of the day, am I happy to be in my own company? Or am I looking for the distractions and not wanting to pay attention to what those emotions might be telling me? And it's this question of, how do I feel in my presence, that really is the key and the secret to self-care. So, question for you. Just type for us in the Q&A, what emotions have you experienced in the last 2 weeks? Just type for them in the chat, or in the Q&A rather. While you're doing that, Len asked, what do you do in order to know how others feel in your presence? So Ruby, how do you find out what others are feeling in your presence?
That's an interesting question. We can ask them. We can ask for feedback. And as leaders go, get further along in their career, and as they move up the chain, people are actually less willing to tell them the truth. And so we've got to ask and be curious and create space for that. I remember a participant sharing this short quote in one of our sessions: the leader brings the weather. And the leader could be in your family, in your community, at work, in all the circles that we run in. And I think if we're paying attention and if we're deeply present with someone, we can also pick up some of those, what's going on with the other person, right? And you all as coaches have those skills to really be with people and pay attention to what's going on in their facial expressions, body language, all of those cues that we pick up. Intuition, another really important coaching skill. Anything you would add to that, Morag?
So you're asking for sure. And this question itself is another tool. It's a version of the what's your number, 1 to 10. I've used this with the senior executive team. Just type one word. What are you feeling as we start this meeting? And what that allows, we don't need to discuss it, but I remember one of the leaders had typed in there, overwhelmed. And what that allowed me to do afterwards was to pick up the phone and just do some one-to-one support of, hey, I noticed you put in the word overwhelmed. What can we do to help? What's triggering that? But also as a leader, if you know that the pulse check of the meeting before you've even started is overwhelmed, stressed, or anxious, then you now have a moment where you can choose how you share the agenda, how you set goals, how you hold people accountable in a way that it respects the baseline emotions that they're feeling in that moment. Because here's the thing, if we don't ask, the emotions don't go away. They just continue to fester until such time as boiling point and they emerge, usually in an unhelpful way. And so getting used to naming the emotion is a key skill, both as coaches and as human beings. And it's interesting, as I look at this, Gail put here, she's had the full gambit. And if I remember rightly, there was an article I read recently that said there are more than 400 emotions. And so that's a lot, Gail. Wow, what a couple of 2 weeks have you had? But here's the thing, we can name the intense emotions. We saw angry earlier on. I love Sandra's got crankiness, playful, anger, joy. But is it anger, or is it frustrated, or is it miffed? Is it stressed, or is it just anxious, or is it nervous? And when we can get more laser-like at how we name the emotion, it gives us more clues as to what might we need to do in order to harness it in the right way. So that's not to ignore it. It's how do we harness it in the right way? Because if I'm angry, I still need to be able to share my anger with my colleague or with myself or with the dog, whatever it might be, but in a way that helps that other person to understand the trigger and what do we need to do together to resolve it. And this slide represents the answers that Ruby and I received for a leadership event that we ran last week. And we asked people to type into the Menti what words, what emotions had they experienced. And you can see they're very similar to what you have shared. But also the bigger the word, the more consistently it was shared by our participants. So you can see stress, frustrated, overwhelmed, confusion. And when we think about the team environment, the business challenges that this leadership team were trying to overcome together, those were likely to slow them down and get in the way of success. So emotions, they're not meant to be swept under the carpet. If you'd like some bonus homework, go watch Disney's Pixar's Inside Out. It is the best training video for emotional intelligence that I can recommend, but it also reinforces that it's important that we do feel the full spectrum, the full gamut, as Gail described it. But in doing so, these act as warning signs. And in fact, Adam Grant recently, I saw a post from him. He said, emotions are a message from your past self to your present self. And a message from your past self to your present self that allows you to make an informed choice as to how you want to show up as your future self. And that time distance might be very short, but they are useful warning systems that when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling anxious, being curious around what is causing this, and now what do I want to do with it? So as we come to this end of this section of look up, I have a reminder for you that you are your most important relationship. That if you're not investing in your own self-care, if you're not paying attention to how you are feeling and showing up in the world, it is going to have an impact, for good or not so good, on the work and the legacy that you are creating. And when you think about the relationships in your life, my guess is that there is somebody who you care deeply for. It may be a family member, it may be a friend. Either way, I'm sure if they turned to you in their hour of need, you would drop everything and be there for them. And so the question for you is, what would happen? What would happen for you and how you can show up in the world if you could drop everything and show up for yourself in the same way as you show up for those friends and family members that you care so deeply about? Ruby, what would you add? How do you make yourself a priority?
Good question, especially this week. We're going to talk about sort of these practices and how we can be an ally to ourselves and be a friend to ourselves. And it starts with making space and slowing down And sometimes it's someone asking me a question, how are you? And do I say I'm fine, or do I speak the truth? And I've got to pay attention to the warning signs as well. Yeah.
So for me, it is making time on the calendar. I've always aspired to be an athlete, but rarely perspired. And a year ago, I rejoined a local gym. And I am now at the point where I actually enjoy sitting down with the app and scheduling my gym visits. And then they are now on my calendar and color coded. We're going to share a technique at the end of today called daily questions. And one of my daily questions is, did I do my best to move meaningfully for at least 30 minutes? And making those appointments with myself to focus on my fitness has transformed my health, happiness, and engagement, the stats that we showed earlier on. And to me, it's still surprising that when I take my own medicine, it really does work. So the first step might be, whether it's 15 minutes, it doesn't matter. Start blocking the you time so that you can then invest in the we time with the other humans with whom you interact. So look up is pausing. How do others feel in my presence? Am I helping and building them up or draining them? And more importantly, and as importantly, how do I feel in my own presence? Because once you have that data, then you can be intentional about how you show up.
So I wanted to share with you now a tool. We call it the Ally Mindset. This is the heart of the book that we've written. And we're thinking about it from two different ways, as I mentioned before. How can I show up as a friend to others? And how can I show up as a friend to myself? How can I be an advocate for myself? How can I take care of myself? And our intention with sharing this model is to give you a language and a framework to break down this idea of self-care and self-advocacy, because that's our, as you know, what we're focused on today. So we're going to talk through each of these. We call them practices because we know it's kind of like yoga. Yoga is a practice. We never become an expert at yoga. We practice yoga. And as we go through these, I want you to think about, out of these 5 practices, which one is something you really want to hone in on. And as I talk through them, I'm sort of giving you a heads up to a question we're going to ask you. So think about each of these as we go through them. How consistent are you at doing this thing for yourself? So the first one is abundance and generosity. And don't feel like you have to take a ton of notes here. In one of our handouts that we're going to share with you at the end of this session, these notes are on here. And there's also some reflective questions at the end. So when we think about abundance and generosity, this is all, I've already mentioned this, creating time and space for yourself, blocking your calendar, practicing lavish self-care. That's a pretty extreme word, right? A synonym for lavish is luxurious. That can feel a little like uncomfortable for some of us, practicing lavish care. But those of you who have children, those of you who have pets, even spouses, I know with all of my heart that you have practiced lavish care on them. So what might be one step in this direction towards lavish, even though maybe lavish feels uncomfortable? And this is obviously prioritizing your needs, your desires. For me, this is all about creating the space to do this work. This is hiring a coach, hiring a therapist, blocking time on your calendar, making this real intention to spend time and take care of yourself. And you see boundaries there. Morag, will you talk about boundaries, that last bullet there?
So abundance and generosity is my default operating system for the world. I am looking at how can I share my expertise? How can I help you grow your practice? I will give, as they say in England, until the cows come home and more. But what I've also learned that in saying yes to everybody else, I kept deprioritizing myself. And it wasn't until last year when I finally, Eric, our business partner, kicked me in the pants and said, look, stop complaining about not being fit. Either do something or shut up. and I chose to do something. And that was honoring my boundary, which is now I go to the gym 3 times a week, and it goes on the calendar and my work now fits around it. Before then, I was still stuck in the mindset of, yes, but I've got all of these deadlines and these emails and all these people who need me. Well, now I need me. So the relationship intelligence here, the thing we can do is to create and honor our boundaries. These aren't rules for others. These are the rules and boundaries we create for ourselves that we then get to choose whether or not we overstep them or ignore them, but set them and honor them, as Ruby has said here. Because when we do that, you can then move to the second practice, which is connection and compassion. And when we do that outwardly, it's getting to know our clients and our colleagues beyond their job title. It's getting to know their story and the human behind the work that they do. When we do connection and compassion for ourselves, it is doing the same. It is hearing the trash talk, the saboteurs in our head that say, you're not worthy. Why are you doing this? What makes you think you're so good? You shouldn't. And whilst you may not ever get rid of that voice, I'm still trying. I've learned to turn the volume down so it's a low hum versus a debilitating arena level, sound level blare that then paralyzes me. How do you do connection and compassion, Ruby?
For me, this is first of all creating space, right? Being abundant and generous with my time. And then checking in. This for me is this consistent, constant reflection on what are my values? What am I trying to accomplish? What's my legacy? What's my intention? How do I want to show up in this relationship, in this meeting, for this team session I'm doing next week? Because that changes. We're always growing and shifting and moving as humans. And if we don't pause and consistently reflect on what we're longing for and what's important, we may just keep doing the thing that's not serving us. This is the work we do as coaches, right? We help people connect back to their values, their vision, and what's really important and what's the priority right now. This one for me is also about deeply honoring your journey. That's the compassion part. That there's like this loving on the person that you were yesterday, loving on the person you were 5 years ago, versus that trash talk of, why did I do that? Why am I still doing this thing? Why am I still here? So this deeply honoring your journey is really powerful for me. And that's the compassion. And you can see the question there on the bottom, how am I doing today? That creating space to have that reflection.
I think it goes back to,
go ahead, yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, it also reminds me of, a friend calls you and says that they've made a career faux pas, they've made a mistake. Chances are we listen with empathy, we coach them through it. And yet when we make the career faux pas, when we drop the ball, oh my goodness, do we slap ourselves down and say some really mean things in our head. And so recognizing and honoring your journey is that we shouldn't be ashamed of the mistakes that we make and will make. The key is, are we learning from those and owning them? When we own our story, we can stand in our truth, stand more powerfully, stand taller as we move forward.
What I love that you just said that, right? When we know what we stand for and we're paying attention, we know it gives us courage and vulnerability to do something risky, to get out of our comfort zone, to try something different that we're really longing for. But again, if we're not paying attention to what we're needing right now and what's really important, we may not be as courageous to step out and do something that's vulnerable. And this is also about showing who you really are. In my coaching practice, I tell people many times, right? The world needs more of you in it. And if we don't know who we are, we hide it because we're uncomfortable and we're not grounded in that. And again, this is the work as coaches that we do for other people. But how does this one, land for you? Morag, what does this one mean to you, courage and vulnerability?
So it's funny, when courage and vulnerability, I can do that when it comes to business decisions. Easy peasy. Let's grow this. Let's go after this engagement. Yes, yes, yes. But courage and vulnerability is something for me personally, I've been leaning into in the last 5 or 6 years. And it is opening up and revealing a little bit more of the real me. The when I am feeling brave, but as importantly, when I'm also feeling like a scaredy cat, when I'm feeling uncertain about how to pursue the way forward. And for me, that has been huge because I really was brought up to believe in independence, stiff upper lip, nothing to see here. Give me a target, I'll go get it. But showing my vulnerability, asking for help, it has transformed the depth and quality of the relationships I have, not just with Ruby and Eric, but also in my friend and family life and with my clients, the fine art of small talk and just getting to know what happened for them in the weekend before and sharing what I'm doing. It has been a game changer.
So good.
It is. So abundance and generosity, are we looking at our time, at life, at our intellect as a scarce resource to be hoarded? Or is it something that we want to replenish and grow? Because when we are being abundant and generous with ourselves, then we can connect with the connection and compassion, the human element, providing that empathy and support, especially in the face of our saboteurs and the trash talk. When we have that foundation, that's what builds psychological safety. It's what builds trust in ourselves, trust in others. Then we have courage and vulnerability that allows us to take informed risk and to move forward and take bigger strides to reach our goals, to help our clients to reach their goals. And that brings us then to the fourth practice, candor and debate. And here, Ruby said, as we move through our career, somebody had asked, how do we find out what others think? What are they feeling in our presence? Well, ask them. But we know that the more senior you are, the less likely you are to have candor and debate. Because if I tell you the truth, it may be career limiting to me. Because I'm junior to you, maybe you'll fire me. But I also guarantee it will be career limiting to you as the leader if you're not getting the candor and debate you need, because you're not able to overcome obstacles that may be preventing you from hitting your business goals. But you only get candor and debate when we have the trust and the connection, the relationship that allows us to take informed risk, to have the courage and vulnerability to say, I don't understand, I don't believe, or I need help. And that happens in a corporate world, and it happens for us as solopreneurs, as coach. The candor and debate is to be able to say, hey, Ruby, I'm not at my best today. And hey, Ruby, here's the help I need. And that's the example I wanted to share that bridges these two. Earlier this year, Eric, Ruby, and I sat down to talk about our strategic vision for SkyeTeam. And Eric shares in the book, we, about his life with depression and anxiety. And so we arrived at the meeting and we did what's your number? And Eric was, I'm a 1. I'm running on fumes. I didn't sleep last night. I just can't do it. And so Ruby and I gave him the space, the connection and compassion. We sat with him in that moment. We gave him the equivalent. Well, we actually gave him the hug, but we gave him the support, all the support that we can give. Because here's what I know. Eric may have been a 1 in that meeting. He's been a 10 this week. And next week, it may be me that's in the 1, and I need Eric's support. So it's the yin and yang, the give and take. But if we can't actually express what we're really feeling and what we need and explore those options, then that fake perky that we've all done on a Zoom meeting, it means nothing. if we don't get to the truth of how do we be better together. Ruby, what would you add?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that really connects to that last point there, asking for what you need. But we also created space for Eric to ask what he needs. But I think we also could have seen it written on his face, right? For me, this one is really about curiosity. If I was to sum it up, questioning, the status quo. Do I have to go to this meeting? Do I have to go to this meeting every week? Do I have to go do this thing right now? Do I really want to go to dinner on Thursday night? Do I have that capacity inside to really be present in that meeting? Do I want to stay in this relationship? Is this the right job for me? Because again, if we're not paying attention, we're not spending time with ourselves, we're not paying attention to what we're really longing for, we don't get really curious and we don't have the courage to ask these questions to ourselves. And there's also this curiosity around our stories, the stories that we tell ourselves. I can't do this. I'm not enough. I don't know what I'm doing. And the stories we tell ourselves about other people. Sometimes in my practice, people will come in and vent or rant, right, for a couple minutes. And at the end of that, I'll ask them, what is really, really, really true here? What do you know for sure? And it really can be summed up sometimes only in one sentence and only in one data point. So it's a question you can ask yourself, right? In a stressful situation or just the things that you're experiencing. What are the stories? And how can you get really curious around that? Because that's the thing that unlocks doing something different based on what we're kind of learning about ourselves. What would you add? Anything else you would add to this before we go to the next
triggers
practice?
two memories for me because we're doing a little bit of both here. I'm thinking about an executive leader I'm coaching right now who's very impassive. And so we'll go through the meetings and there is absolutely nothing through the Zoom call as to, well, what's he thinking and feeling right now? And in my head, I'm going like, he hates this. Oh my God, he's hating this. Like he's going to And here's the courage is asking, so what are you taking away from today's conversation? And invariably I'm like, wow, as he then lists out I like this, this, and this. And the reason why he's so impassive here is he's busy processing and making notes about everything that he's choosing to do as he listens to himself speak, but also responds to the suggestions and the coaching I might be offering. And I think we need to do the same for ourselves, which is being curious around, why am I so nervous? What's different about this presentation to that presentation? Why is it that I'm blowing off going to the gym again? Because let's face it, none of us are ever in the mood to go to the gym. But can I just at least put my sneakers on and go for a walk around the park behind my house? It's better than nothing. Did I move meaningfully for 30 minutes? Bingo, you're a winner. And you're back on that upward spiral versus then sitting there 3 hours later, having been on the couch and now berating myself for having not used my time more wisely. So if candor and debate is the fourth practice, action and accountability is the fifth and the capstone. Because as with all of these things, much of it is common sense. We know what we should do. The thing is actually following through and doing it. And Ruby, you coined this phrase in the same way as lavish self-care. You were the one that introduced us to this concept of practice brutal focus. And so tell us about brutal focus.
So I will actually credit this to a woman named Carla Fowler, and she is a performance science coach. And this is some wording that she uses in her practice that I picked up and I thought it was so applicable here. What do you want to be brutally focused on when you think about self-care for you? And it really helps us get intentional and really pointed in the direction that we want to go. This, to me, action and accountability activates all of it. And again, it's the work that we do with our coachees, right? We help them find meaningful actions that are deeply resonant with a way forward that they've decided they want to take. And so for you, do you hold yourself accountable? How do you remember? What structures do you put in place to help keep you focused? For me, a really simple example, I have a calendar over there. I'm looking at it. It's a cat yoga calendar. And when I go exercise, I give myself a sticker every single day. That's my accountability, but it helps me create the patterns that I'm longing for. It's a tool that I've put in place for several years. And Morag, you mentioned this one earlier, this celebrating your accomplishments, right? That's my stickers. And I also have a jar sitting over there. When something really good happens and I'm starting to take care of myself or do things in a way where I'm in the flow and really resonant, I'll take notes and put it in this jar. And at the end of every year, I'll open it up and read all those gratitudes and all those celebrations, which again helps us move up that spiral.
Yep. So Len asked, what
Vesely.
practices and tools bring us awareness to look at ourselves and reflect? And we're going to share the idea of daily questions. We start every staff meeting on a Friday with what we call ripples and joys. A ripple is a project or a thing that's been done either by somebody else for us or a project we've moved forward. And a joy is anything personal or professional that's brought us light. And that habit has helped strengthen our relationships because now we understand what motivates us from both of those questions. But it's just been interesting in a way to communicate at a human level versus just straight down to business. And Agatha, you asked if we could show the courage and vulnerability part again. I assume you meant the slide, but courage and vulnerability is taking that informed risk to go a little faster, to go a little bolder, to say what's on your mind, and to expand or get out of your comfort zone so that you can learn and grow. And when we can do that, we can share it with others. We're going to pause very briefly here. What questions are top of mind for you? We know that this was a whirlwind introduction to the 5 practices that make for being an ally and a friend to ourselves. David, ooh, lovely to see you, my friend. What's the question? Oh, no.
I've scribbled reams of notes, so thank you. This is, as we were talking about the green room, right up my alley. So excited.
Yeah.
So obviously, you got the question from Micah early on about predicting one's own capacity. Can you flesh that out a little bit? Because I know there are a number of us here, even within the coaching.com community, where we've often signed up for too many programs at the same time, more than once. So the idea of knowing your capacity enough not to over yes.
Well, yeah, when you work it out, let me know. So here's what I know. When I look at it and think, oh my goodness, they're all going to say yes on the same day. The universe has been rather generous and in that they don't. And here's something else I know from my own Orange Theory and gym experiences. I underestimate my capacity every day. When I first went back, I was doing like a 25-hour mile. I've just done a 10-minute mile. I know I can get that to 9 minutes. So firstly, you're possibly underestimating. But in those moments where we are overwhelmed, what we do is we lean on our allies and our friends at work, which means that if I don't have capacity, Ruby will pick up the baton and run with it. We have a network of trusted colleagues that we will bring in as coaches to work with clients because there is only one Morag and I am not yet clonable. So I would encourage you to find your trusted allies and have the courage and vulnerability to either delegate all or some of that work or bring them in as your partner because you'll be better together and you can grow together. What would you add, Ruby?
Yeah, just 2 quick things. I have been really good about this the last year or so about blocking my time. So if I'm leading a workshop, I block 2 hours or however much time I need the day before. So anytime something is scheduled, the preparation and the travel time is also scheduled. I've also started blocking Zen days. We do this, all of us on our team, where it's an untouchable day. If I decide to take an hour out and meet with someone, I'll do that. But I'm pretty good at not doing anything else. And I can do anything I want that day. I don't have to work. And I would almost
go to yoga.
And I would also challenge some of you to write yourself a permission slip. What kind of permission slip do you need right now? Write that down as a structure.
You got very fierce there. I like that. So I do the same. I have unscheduled days, which I then do ignore. But because we use Calendly to then allow people like you to schedule time with us, it shows it as blocked. Yeah. And I've also restricted. It used to be that it did from 8 till 5 every single day. And then I realized, Morag, that's like, you're just asking for trouble here. So now it has reduced windows and different windows because most of our clients are around the world. So we need to accommodate different time zones. But instead of it being all of me, it's some of me. And I've stopped feeling as guilty. I still feel a little guilty when I have to say, that'll be in 3 weeks' time, or I can't see, yin and yang. All right. So we're going to put a quick poll up here. These 5 practices. If you had to just shift one of these 5 practices that would have the biggest or the greatest impact on your whole life, not just your work life, on your whole life, which one would it be? Would it be abundance and generosity, understanding your boundaries and how to say yes and no? Would it be connection and compassion and building a relationship with yourself? Would it be courage and vulnerability, taking informed risk? Candor and debate, truth speaking and truth seeking for yourself? Or action and accountability, getting a little better at following through on those gym routines, or self-care, luscious self-care.
Luxurious.
Just vote for us now. And Lynn is going to put up, because we'll give you some pointers with the most popular practice in our final little bit as we come to the end of this session. So vote now if you haven't. And then Lynn, can you share the answers?
We're now at 50%. Would you like me to stop the poll and share the results? Or let's 7%.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Go on, Ruby. Let's see if we can get it. Like rock show. It's not going to do it because it's not our Zoom room. There you go. All right. So it's the action. Oh, it did. Action and accountability is the winner here in terms of, I assume then we know what we should do, but we say yes to everybody else. Now we need to give ourselves the heck yes and permission. I love the permission slip idea to follow through. And that brings us really to step up. If look up is how am I feeling? Overwhelmed, nervous, excited, whatever it might be. Show up is, so where of those 5 practices do I need to lean in and either turn the dial up or turn the dial down in order to create the legacy and the end goal that I'm seeking? Step up is around creating the rituals that help you to be a 10, to be an 8, and to understand that when you are in a 1 to 3, what does it take to +1? And what we've learned, and there's an article that's included in our bonus resources that talks about managing your energy, not your time. This isn't about doing more things. This is not heaven above about getting up at 4 a.m. and working out like all the most successful CEOs do. Because trust me, this CEO does not do mornings. I am not getting up at 4 a.m. unless I really have to. But the 4 buckets that we all need to pay attention to are spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental. And we shared with you, for example, ripples and joys. That fulfills for us the emotional, mental, and spiritual buckets because our work is a calling to us. We're passionate about it. I get goosebumps as I listen to Eric and Ruby share the successes and insights from their week, especially as they've been in Virginia this week and I was in New Orleans, so I can't wait to hear about it tomorrow. And it also fills my mental bucket as it raises ideas for, well, how do we replicate that? And how do we make that part of how we show up for each other and for our clients? What are some of the rituals around, especially action and accountability, Ruby? But which other ones would you add here?
Action accountability. I think, well, I love my stickers. One thing I've done is created a joy list. This isn't necessarily connected directly to action accountability, wanted to share quickly. I've created this list of things that bring me joy, and I've started paying attention to it. One of them is yoga. Another one is dancing to live music. And then I added one a couple of weeks ago, dancing to live music on Sunday afternoons, because who goes out dancing on Sunday afternoon? So starting to pay attention. I think it's a really cool tool that helps me get connected with what will fill my bucket. And Morag here just popped up. This is my vision board that I created for the first time ever in 2022 in January. When I shared earlier the time when I wasn't really showing up for myself, that was the year before when I was sick and not really doing the things that I needed to do to take care of myself. So this is a tool. I'm sure you all have done this or maybe worked with your clients on this. But what's your vision board? You can do this electronically or on paper. But what was really cool about this is it helped me. I created time to do it, abundance and generosity. It helped me connect intuitively with what I'm really longing for. And I looked at it every single day for about a year and a half. It was like right over there. I'm looking at the wall where my new vision board is. And it helped me make decisions. I remember there was a women's leadership program that I had been sort of thinking about for a couple of years. And I looked over at it, and you can see some of the words on here, right? Magic. Take your time or someone else will. There was just a lot of inspiring things. When I looked at it, I thought, of course I have to do this. You know, I didn't know if I had enough money. I didn't know if I had enough time, but it helped keep me on track, and it helped keep me accountable and take actions toward what I was really dreaming and longing for. So play with this or use this with your clients.
Yeah. For me, you'll remember I started with the story of me lying on the patio unable to move. Well, this was my solution. It was Hugh Jackman. I booked tickets to go and see Hugh Jackman in The Music Man. Here I am. What am I? 9 rows from the front. I went on my own. You can even see the excitement. It was palpable. And music, as you've seen, I mean, Hugh Jackman's still remembering the fact that I was there. But anyway, on another note, music is important. You can see the photo of us here. I'm a classical musician. Eric plays in a band. Making time for these matters, and it is easy to deprioritize. So I'm curious, in Q&A, even right now, what tools and techniques are you using right now so that you can be at your best, even when the world and circumstances may be causing you to be at your worst? Please do share, because then it will add to our toolkit. And while you're typing, we're just going to share the defining tool, because we've got to remember that even with the best laid plans, occasionally we are going to forget. I may work out 3 or 4 times a week when I'm at home, but I promise when I'm on the road at the moment, all bets are off. I have yet to make it to a hotel gym. And so this quote, Ruby, I know means a lot to you. So tell our audience about the importance of this quote.
So this quote is from Don Miguel Ruiz from the 4 Agreements. I bet many of you have read this. And this is the 4th agreement: always do your best. And this, to me, connects back to the compassion part. We know that our best is different. We've asked you what your number, depending on what your number is every day, our best is going to look different. And so if you lay in bed at night and you ask yourself, well, what was my number today? It was a 3. Did I do my best? Hell yeah, I did my best. I got to a 5, right? Whatever that is. Just know that that's all you can do. No more, no less. This gets back to the compassion and loving on yourself. Because when we do that, we get into the love and the positive emotions versus the self-talk and the critical that can really get in our own way. And Morag just popped up a tool that she loves.
I love this. It's the daily questions, and it comes from my friend and mentor, Marshall Goldsmith. There is a link to one of his videos. It's 6 coaching questions, but you can Google his video around daily questions too. And it's as simple as, if I know how I feel, if I go back 2 years ago, how did I feel in my own presence? I felt overweight. I felt unfit. I felt sluggish. So how did I need to show up? I needed to show up and to choose to get fit. So my step up, what did I choose to do is, yes, I rejoined the gym. But you can see here, question number 3 is, did I do my best to move meaningfully for 30 minutes? So irrespective of whether I get to the gym for an hour, do I get up out of this chair? Do I go and commute to and from work instead of just from bedroom to office to bedroom? And this is my way of holding myself accountable. And you can do this. You can have as many questions as you want, but I would suggest 3 to 5 to start with, and make those ingrained habits. And then you can add or change. But did I do my best, abundance and generosity, to set boundaries, to say no, to allow for those heck yeses versus just saying yes? Did I say, do my best to have fun? Because life is too short. If you're not having fun in what you do, who you do it with, and who you are, then you own making those changes. Did I do my best to ask for and give meaningful feedback? And did I ask for and give, and as importantly, accept help from others so that we can all be better together? So as we come to the end of our time together, I just want to remind you that self-care is not selfish. It's a trite meme, but it's really, really, really matters, because what's at stake when you're not taking care of yourself? How we show up for ourselves impacts how we show up for others. It impacts the energy that you bring, the way you hold yourself, your body language. It all matters. And you deserve the care and grace that you give to others. And you don't get that by working harder, by working smarter, by managing your time better. The only way you do it is by radically changing the way in which you view the world, by radically changing the way you view how you show up in the world, and tuning into your ally mindset. The choice is now yours. We challenge you. It's time for you to look up, show up, step up, to be your best friend at work. David.
If we only had another 90 minutes. Yes?
Yes.
Oh, look, I've got hearts.
So for the participants, the handouts, Lynn has just pasted the handouts into the chat, so you'll be able to download those. And Morag and Ruby, thank you. That was an incredible session and refreshing and enlivening. And before we go to Q&A, just a quick reminder to our participants about the survey that's going to pop up as soon as you leave the Zoom room. It's going to come up on your screen when the session ends. Please take just a few seconds to fill it out. So much of what is offered now as part of Coaching.com's summit is because of things that came up during in these feedback surveys. So please give us that moment. All right, so we've got time for just 1 or 2 questions, if I can. We got a question early on that was a statement about, Gary had made a statement about being an introvert. It makes his likelihood of running out of gas quickly even higher. I think part of the question is, what do you see in the differences in navigating this self-care that we're talking about in being an ally for yourself? What do you see the differences are between introverts and extroverts?
Ruby, you want to take that first? I'm thinking of Eric already.
That's what I was. So our colleague, Eric, like when we traveled together, he had to ask for what he need, right? He had to be vulnerable and let us know that, hey, at the end of the day, I don't want to talk to you for at least an hour. He takes an hour at least at the end of every day to go be alone and lets us know when he wants to hang out. Morag and I are much more extroverted, and we're ready to go straight to the bar and have cocktails and talk about how the day went. So I think introverts in a different way have to ask for the space that they need. Because in my experience, introverts need that space to come back and get grounded in a way that's different for extroverts. What would you add, Morag?
No, I think that's it. Again, it's just being sensitive. Yeah. And again, when your colleague says, no, I need a minute, For me, sometimes, even though I'm an extrovert, I'll go into the ladies' bathroom, into the stall and close the door. And that's the moment where I can just power pose from Amy Cuddy. But if and when Eric, I know, asks for some alone time, I can't write a story that says, oh, he doesn't want to be with me. It's just recognizing and honoring that's his journey. And that when he comes back later, that's when we get to party.
Well, and Jinwa asked a question that I think is, I mean, this could be a presentation all by itself. Given the work that you do, she wonders, why do you think the majority of people are so not good at self-care?
Well, I know I was brought up
because, well, I was going to say, I think because we're so good at loving on other people. I was told early on in my coaching journey from a coach that mentored me that bottom line, our job as coaches is to love on people. You know, we have systems and processes to do that, but I think we're so good at showing up for others that we sometimes don't take the time for ourselves. That's my opinion. Anything you would add, Morag?
Yeah, it was just not brought up that way. It was not every man for themselves, but it was, you know, that's the soft thing. And that's where we get mistaken, even as coaches, that it's the soft skills. Well, the soft skills, including self-care, are what enable us to get to the hard goals. And ultimately, we are all human and we need that virtual and physical hug from ourselves and from others. And you know what? You're all worth it.
Thank you. That's a perfect place to leave it for now so we can close out. It's to remember our worth. And so thank you. Now, wait, before we close the session, I want to remind everybody about the IM sessions. The slide is up and you can see how many sessions we've got and they have seats left. It's important because in about 33 minutes, the sessions today are going to start. Plus, we also have, again, some sessions coming on this coming Tuesday. You can sign up for the IM sessions with one of the facilitators you see on the slide by clicking on the link that Lynn has just dropped into the chat. Obviously, you can also do it in the Center for Excellence by clicking on the IM Sessions tab. And finally, again, please don't forget about the survey. Love to get your feedback. And any comments that you make or share in those forums go to Morag and Ruby as well as to me. So please give us feedback. The more we know, the better we can do. So thank you, folks. Thanks for taking up the masthead to help. I mean, this is a huge community of folks that many of whom have experienced overgiving all the time. And since we can't give from an empty tank, thank you for helping us figure out how to keep our own tanks full. It's brilliant work.
Thank you. Thank you all for being all in and being deeply present. We're grateful.
Hey, it's me again. This is a friendly reminder if you are an ICF member. Now that you've fully reviewed this session recording, simply scroll down to the session resources and find a one-question quiz. Please complete it, and you will ensure you've received the CC units for this session. And if you've already attended this session live, you've already been granted the CC units, and you don't need to complete this quiz. See you soon. Bye-bye.